Welcome to another episode of This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast. Season 5, Episode 3. Your safe space to discuss sports, politics, social issues, and even religion, where we will take it all very seriously, but not too seriously. Donald Trump has not yet been inaugurated President of the United States of America, and his impact has already been felt in the Middle East. The Israelis have reached a settlement agreement with Hamas for a ceasefire in Gaza. And Trump's emissary, one Steve Witkoff, pulled one of the biggest big dick moves I can remember being pulled since I did the piece on big dick moves. Rusty Hardin, the defense attorney for one Deshaun Watson, pulled a monumental, a gigantic, a colossal big dick move on the assistant district attorney for the city of Houston. We will explore in depth. And all great things come to an end. Newcastle United had rattled off 6 straight victories in the Premier League, 6 straight matches where they not only won, but they did so convincingly. Unfortunately, the good guys fell this morning, but Newcastle has propelled themselves into the top 4, at least according to the point totals for today, and are competing for European soccer in the year of our Lord 2025 and 2026. How has this happened? How has a team that was languishing not 8 weeks ago turned it around so suddenly? Thank you all for listening. Thank you to those people who have returned week after week. I really do appreciate it. If you're new to the podcast, please like, subscribe, thumbs up, 5-star, write a review, send to friends and enemies far and wide. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is commercial free. If you like it that way, please consider supporting. This Is Why I Don't Vote podcast is on Patreon. Your support is welcome.
Act 1. The Trump administration pulls a big dick move before its inauguration.
I did a segment about the Deshaun Watson case and how his defense attorney, Rusty Hardin, big dicked the prosecution in that case such that the prosecution didn't even file charges against Watson where they had a viable case. I don't get to do a lot of pieces that use a concept like big dicking. It's rare that you see out in the public eye something that is laid so bare where you're like, that person got big dicked, that person was the big dick. The assistant district attorney in the city of Houston was presented a number of complaints of women who said, I was sexually assaulted by Deshaun Watson. They all gave similar statements of how the incidents happened. They were massage therapists. They were invited via social media to massage Deshaun Watson. During the course of the massage, Watson would somehow make an overture towards there being more than just a massage. They refused. He kept advancing. If these overtures were not met satisfactorily, generally the encounter ended. Watson would leave, never to engage the services of this massage therapist again. During the course of the investigation, the assistant district attorney, who by the way was a woman, I believe she was a black woman, was contacted by a man named Rusty Hardin. Rusty Hardin is not one of the best criminal attorneys in Houston. Rusty Hardin is not one of the best criminal attorneys in Texas. Rusty Hardin is not one of the best criminal attorneys west of the Mississippi River. Rusty Hardin is one of the best criminal attorneys in the United States of America. Rusty Hardin, one of the best criminal attorneys in the United States of America, contacts the district attorney's office and says, look, I understand that you're investigating my client. I've got some information that I think you want. You can come to my office and we can have a conversation and I will provide you this information. Big dick move. What ended up happening? As I laid out in the segment that I did, this assistant district attorney got up from her desk. She got her briefcase. She went down to her car. She left the office building where she works, where criminal defendants are marched through day in and day out. She drove her car to Rusty Hardin's office. She presented at Rusty Hardin's office. She sat down in a chair and she waited. She waited for Mr. Hardin to be available to meet with her. And then when the secretary said that Mr. Hardin's available, she stood up, she walked into Rusty Hardin's office, she sat down in a chair where Rusty Hardin was behind his desk, and then Hardin proceeded to give her information that she was allowed to review in his presence, no less, specific to the allegations made against his client by these massage therapists. We have all seen the movies. We have all seen the television shows. We see the power of the state lorded over these criminal defendants, sometimes in a flattering light, sometimes in a very disparaging light, but we see the state being the heavy, being the big dick in these situations. And here, in the situation where the ADA is investigating Deshaun Watson for all these alleged, well, now we know they weren't really just allegations, considering he settled all of them. Why would you pay all that money if they were just allegations? But at the time, these are alleged sexual assaults committed by Deshaun Watson against these massage therapists. And what happens in this unique circumstance is the ADA walks into the defendant's attorney's office and sits down before the attorney and is allowed to review information in the presence of the attorney, getting big dicked at every turn. I bring this up because the negotiations between the Israelis and Hamas, although we are now very well educated to the fact that Hamas was not the only group that acted out on that fateful day on October 7th, that there are a number of other splinter groups that are involved in this shit show in Gaza. Point being, Israel, Hamas, they've been negotiating now for 8-9 months over some sort of ceasefire, some sort of resolution to the conflict there. And the Biden administration claims that it was working tirelessly day and night to reach a resolution and just couldn't get it over the finish line. Donald Trump sends a man named Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer in New Jersey, best known, most famous for, I believe, is the way to say it, but he's most famous for having built the Fontainebleau Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Trump knows him. They're very close. They play golf together. He sends this guy to Israel to negotiate the settlement, and within a week, we have terms of a deal. Now let's talk about why I would juxtapose this situation, the settlement agreement between Israel and Hamas, with the situation involving an ADA in Houston, Texas, investigating sexual assault allegations against one Deshaun Watson and his defense attorney, Rusty Hardin. As confirmed by the Times of Israel, not a U.S. newspaper, not any U.S. journalist, as confirmed by the Times of Israel, Witkoff calls and says, I'm coming to Israel and we're talking about a settlement between Israel and Hamas. I'm going to be there on Saturday. And the Israelis come back and they say, Saturday, the Sabbath? That's a religious day. And I don't know that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be available on that day. Religious practices and all. Let's schedule for another day. Witkoff, who is Jewish, who is well aware of not only domestic Jewish politics here in the United States, is well aware of Jewish politics in Israel, says, and I'm paraphrasing because it's not known exactly the words that were exchanged between the parties, but Witkoff says, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up with that bullshit. Let's you and I be straight with one another, because that clearly hasn't been happening over the course of the last year. I know that Benjamin Netanyahu is a secular Jew. The man is not observant of all of these holidays. I know his ass is going to be working on Saturday because his ass is going to be working with me on ironing out this settlement when I present there. Click. Let me repeat. Click. That wasn't a question. It wasn't a proposition. Witkoff said, I'll be there on this day. Have him available for me. The Israelis tried to big dick him. The Israelis tried to pull a big dick move on this guy, and he fucking flipped it on him. He flipped it directly on their head. Witkoff immediately shows, I'm the big dick in the room. I'm the one that you're going to listen to. Guess what happened, dear listener? Witkoff presented on a Saturday and met with Netanyahu on a Saturday. Now, some of you will listen to this segment and you will think, this is a very crass way of presenting this type of delicate diplomatic interplay. I want to address that very quickly, this idea of crassness. If you look at any of the reporting out of Israel, what they're noting is Witkoff was not a diplomat. He is not a diplomat. Witkoff has an abrasive style that they weren't expecting or are used to. And what that means is they were able to use pearl-clutching nonsense that has worked on U.S. diplomats for decades to obfuscate the ability to reach a settlement. In other words, by using simplistic diplomatic protocols, Israel was able to dictate the duration and the terms of a potential ceasefire with Hamas. Clutch your pearls all you like, dear listener. Crass often works in light of all of this procedural and nonsensical diplomatic red tape. Joe Biden's administration wasn't some sophisticated, well-run, well-oiled machine. This was a bunch of people who, because of their marriage to these procedural norms, these international norms, they were able to get big dicked for over a year. The United States, the most powerful country in the history of the world, with the most powerful military in the history of the world, who was financing the war in Gaza, could not get a settlement deal done between the Israelis and Hamas for 8, 9, 10 months. And this guy, who is not a diplomat, who is not a politician, is able to go over there and get it done in less than 72 hours? If you want to stick to your pearl clutching and you want to be able to use words like crass and abrasive, you know what? I'm all for it. I'm all for that being part of the lexicon of the conversation. You know where you can have that part of the conversation, where you can set up ground zero for the procedural norms and the international diplomacy that we've seen over the course of the year with the Biden administration? You can establish that at ground zero in Gaza. Set up camp. Set up camp among the smoldering ruins of Gaza City and talk about international diplomatic norms. For my part, I'll take a guy who throws around a few fucks and tells people to shut up if it gets a deal done, particularly if those people who need to be told to shut the fuck up are those that are trying to big dick the United States of America. I don't want this piece to come off as an indictment completely of the Biden administration, but it's hard for me not to posture it that way, because it just shows how feckless and weak and ineffective Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Anthony Blinken, anyone involved in his administration has been with regard to achieving a settlement between Israel and Hamas. I'll end this piece by summing up the need sometimes to be a dick by hearkening back to the immortal line from one Team America World Police.
Well, being a dick ain't so bad. See, there's three kinds of people: dicks, pussies, and assholes. Pussies think everyone can get along, and dicks just want to fuck all the time without thinking it through. But then you got your assholes, Chuck. And all the assholes want is to shit all over everything. So pussies may get mad at dicks once in a while because pussies get fucked by dicks. But dicks also fuck assholes, Chuck. And if they didn't fuck the assholes, you know what you'd get? You get your dick and your pussy all covered in shit.
Act 2. The streak is over.
All good things must come to an end. Newcastle United had won 6 straight Premier League matches, vaulting them into the top 4 of the Premier League. I actually held off on doing this piece until Saturday morning. I'm actually recording this piece and then having to edit it, placing a lot more strain on me on a publication day. But I got up early and I caught the second half of the Newcastle United Bournemouth match in anticipation of being able to speak to 7 straight Premier League victories. Unfortunately, that is not the case. The good guys did not prevail. In what turned out to be a lopsided affair, Newcastle was down 1 in stoppage time, and they give up 2 goals in stoppage time to lose 4-1. A disappointing result at home, no doubt, but still a great streak, propelling Newcastle into what could be European football in the year of our Lord 2025 to 2026. Prior to this streak, Newcastle had actually had several poor results, and many were clamoring for the head of the manager, or what we would call head coach, Eddie Howe. But a couple of key players were out, and they came back into the lineup, namely one guy named Sandro Tonali, who's a midfielder. And this is the point of this segment, is that here we have a team. I'm a fan. I'm frustrated. They don't get the results that people think they should be getting. Of course, you're going to start to look at whether or not you need to make changes in the lineup, but you're also looking at the coach, the manager. Can this person get the best out of the talent that they have? And you have 1 or 2 key players come back into the lineup, and all of a sudden, the team can't lose. We don't usually associate that in a sport where there are 11 players on the field at any one time, unless that player is the quarterback. In football, generally, the only player that can make such a difference to a team's wins and or losses is the quarterback. We've seen guys go out in the NBA, particularly in the last 2 or 3 seasons, star players, and the team either keeps winning or keeps losing. In hockey, because you have so many lines running out there so frequently, yes, one player, unfortunately for the Detroit Red Wings last year, Dylan Larkin going out, was a huge impact to their ability to win or lose. And unfortunately, because he was out, their playoff push fell short. But in hockey, often one guy going out can be compensated for by the fact that you're running 3 or 4 lines. You've got so many other guys that are making an impact on the ice. In football, soccer as we call it here in the United States, we don't normally associate 1 or 2 players going out as having such an impact on all 11 players at the same time, and yet guys going in and out, not in front or in back, but in the midfield, that has a huge impact on how most clubs can operate what they want to do, namely transitioning the ball from their back end successfully and in possession through the midfield and then into an attacking position. Turns out that Tonali was one of those guys that settled down everybody else in the position they were playing on the field such that they felt comfortable in playing defense, transitioning, making key passes through the midfield, and allowing the rest of the midfielders to advance the ball strategically, not clumsily, not just kicking it forward strategically so that the forwards, the strikers, could get into position to threaten to score. It is a thing of beauty to see 2 or 3 key passes in the midfield and then that one long pass right down the middle of the field through a defense, allowing the forwards an opportunity to attack the goal or allowing the forwards to advance the ball such that now the defense is completely out of position. There are people running all over the field and there are opportunities to score. That's what Newcastle has been doing during this winning streak. They don't go down the sides of the field. They go straight down the middle. They attack down the middle, and they do so by putting people in key positions on the field, particularly in the midfield, allowing the defense to come up, to believe that they're in a position where all they have to do is dispossess the ball and they're going to be able to attack, and boom, before you know it, 1 or 2 of the strikers is behind the defense, and the ball is in the air in anticipation of being able to put it on goal. Because the international soccer season is so long, because the Premier League season is so long, it's funny to see these ebbs and flows of a team throughout the course of a season where, again, 6 or 8 weeks ago, people were calling for the manager Eddie Howe's head because they'd had such poor performances, and yet here we are, same guy, really running the same system with just 1 or 2 key players back in the lineup, and Newcastle has rattled off 6 straight wins. Well, up and until today, they had rattled off 6 straight wins. They're now 6-1 in their last 7 matches. There's plenty of season left, so stranger things have happened. I don't see Newcastle being able to catch the top of the table, Liverpool United. Unfortunately, that team is playing very well, and there is, I believe, as of today, a 9-point difference. That's 3 total wins between them, given that Newcastle has lost today. I'm not sure whether or not Liverpool plays later today or they play later this weekend, but they could potentially be looking at a 12-point deficit, which seems insurmountable. Then again, when you consider that this season, this Premier League season goes on until May, that's right, and not the beginning of May, the end of May. I believe there's a total of 15 or 16 matches left.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
This is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast.